Okay, here's the start. There you go. That's for me
All right,
later.
awesome.
Okay, so I first found out about you like a long like I've known about you for I don't even know how long. Maybe as long as you've been doing YouTube.
Yeah.
You started doing YouTube this kind of thing, like guitar related content. I think it's kind of like before almost anybody else, really.
Well,
What was the inspiration there?
well, I was doing YouTube before you had to have a Google email address.
Right.
When I log into YouTube, it's not with the Gmail. It's rustycooley.com.
Right.
So it's I've been doing that for a long time. And it wasn't so much that there was an inspiration, a motivation behind it, as much as you know, you got to remember when I started doing this, there was no social media.
Right.
There was not even it wasn't even MySpace yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So back then it was about having a website, sharing links. That was a big thing. You had to have a links page, and you swapped links with everybody to get your name out there more,
Mhm.
and and then a YouTube channel. And my view was always like this. It's like you know maybe this is me being snobby, but it's like if I go to somebody's website back then and I see a lesson on there and it's all this ridiculous looking stuff in the tab and I can't hear you or see you play it, well, I don't care.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It
Totally.
doesn't mean nothing to me. It could be, little Timmy next door's tab for smoke on the water or something.
Right, 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 right.
But so it's like if I got to see it,
Yeah.
and so I made it a point to always have videos for everything that I was doing for the most part. I mean, in the beginning there were some MP3s out there, but I always had, there were tabs and MP3s and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff I just did off my website,
Mhm.
before, you know, YouTube was really a big thing. It was just it was so different, man. We did it for fun back then. That's the difference. That's the difference, and that's what makes it so difficult now because now you have to do it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah, I
what I
think you're
mean?
right.
Back then it was like, cool, man. Let's load up some new stuff. This is all fun. It
Yeah.
was just fun. It wasn't. It wasn't like mandatory. It wasn't like this
Right.
is detrimental to your career if you don't have these numbers and yada yada yada.
Sure.
Then you're nothing.
Yeah.
So now it's like not cool. It's not fun anymore.
Do you just speaking like industry stuff, are you thinking about that stuff often, or are you like kind of doing your own thing, or like are you very music industry minded?
Well, I'm very music industry minded, but that doesn't mean that I'm very music industry proactive.
Right.
I know what I need to be doing. I just choose not to because
Yeah.
I'm very stubborn, man. And when I have to do something, I don't like to do it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
So when you're not when you have something that you know that you should be doing or whatever, and you're like, I'm not really interested in it. Is that typically self promotion stuff, video
Well,
stuff, or
yeah,
what
'cause
is that?
I don't get on social media to talk about anything but my music
Hell yeah.
career. I don't get on to do all that other bullshit that
Hell yeah.
everybody else does. I don't care.
I
I don't
love
want to know
that.
politics and anything else, dude. Save that shit.
Yeah.
It's not a social platform to me get on bitch about life and all that shit. You
Right.
know. So for me, social media is strictly business.
Hmm.
You know, and I get on and post when I think I have something relevant to post. I don't just post because I need to post something 3 times a day. You know what I mean? I also come from the era of, again, no social media, right? So when I was a kid, we were starved for information on our favorite artists. So anytime anything came out, we ate it up, man. We knew everything about our favorite artists, everything. Nowadays, there's so much information overload that people don't even see what's really going on. You know, I remember I had times where people were like, this was after I went from doing instrumental stuff to doing like Outworld. I would have people go, "Oh, you're in a band now?" And it would be all over my pages. Bloop
Right.
bloop bloop beep beep, blinking lights and all that shit. Hey, I'm in a band now. People wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
And when Outworld broke up and I was doing some Day of Reckoning, there's like, "Oh, when's the Outworld's new album coming out?" It's like, people that would profess to be your biggest fans and they wouldn't know what you were doing because there's just so much overload that it just goes right by people. So I'm kind of,
Yeah.
and I don't know if this is working for me or not, but I'm kind of in the mindset of trying to take it back to the way it was when I was a kid. I'm going to put out information here and there, and when it does, it sticks. It's
Yeah.
not like here's Rusty's 3 posts today. Big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
When you post that much, people are just like, okay, whatever. It's just another post. They don't really pay super attention to it, and they can miss some valuable stuff. So I'm just going to put it out, and maybe maybe in 6 months from now my attitude will change and I'll be all pumped up about it.
Right.
But I do know the more busy I get with different things, the more I'll have something to talk about. You know,
Sure.
but I don't want to just get on and just I don't know. There's enough crap out there.
Yeah. the accessibility to artists nowadays is so, it's just the opposite of what it was. Because I mean, I'm 36,
Yeah.
so I'm not like, I grew up, well, I kind of grew up on the internet. Like I grew up uh, on the World Wide Web, which is very different than what it is now. I grew up
Oh,
where there was websites and forums, and I
yeah.
remember I would go to guitartricks.com and I would just learn all like here's a Steve Vai lick, and I would just sit there on one website and just be like, try to learn, like
Yeah.
I
So it was really before social media took off?
oh, absolutely, yeah,
Okay, cool.
and
So you know what I'm talking about.
yeah, I mean, the my one of my favorite things to do is to go on Napster and download Napster or LimeWire or whatever, and download like, it was before YouTube really, so it was like the Steve Vai guitar instructional video, whatever, the Paul Gilbert Terrifying Guitar Trip or whatever, and that
Yeah.
was all I had. And so I just watch, and I would just be like, how do you just frame by frame, like how do
Yeah.
you place your hand like that? Why is his hand like this? And just try to emulate stuff. But now you can just message an artist that you like,
Yeah.
and sometimes they'll respond, which is just mind blowing. And I think it's good in a way for building online communities, and that's important for an artist now. But also, there's a certain mystique that you get from just an artist where you just can't reach out and touch them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like I'm not big on my social media, like the email section of social media.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess it's like on whatever, where I messaged you initially from, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't normally get on there and check that stuff.
Right.
It's just lucky that I got back on and saw that you had messaged me.
Oh, well, thanks for doing that. I'm very excited
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. So because I don't normally mess with my inbox on any of those social media platforms. It's like,
Yeah.
if you want to reach me at my email address on my website or whatever.
Right.
So people will email me, and I'll get on there, and there'll be like 500 emails.
Right.
So I don't get on there and check that. It's like I got too much email already.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And I know
is.
it's
Yeah.
bad, but so it kind of keeps a little bit of a distance in there. And I know exactly what you're talking about, keeping that mystique.
Hell yeah.
If you make yourself so readily available, then there's not too much special about that anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had a buddy that started streaming. He played guitar, incredible guitar player, and he would stream video game stuff. He'd stream guitar, and he'd be like, "Now, I make good money, and it's fun, and I like it. But every time I do it, I give a little bit of my soul away." You know what I mean? And I'm like, I guess I kind of feel that, because you're becoming less, and I mean, the scale of it for me is much different. So like, I have a YouTube channel, and it does okay, but every time that you put out a video that includes how I feel about XYZ, whatever, it is giving a bit of yourself away, where somebody now owns that information. And in a lot of ways, just like releasing creative output, so you have an album that you put out and you work on it for years, and you spend every waking moment thinking about that little note in that one solo that you could make a little bit better. And as soon as it's out there, it now belongs to everybody else, and then they can take it and make it their own. They make it, the meaning of it changes depending on who's consuming it. It's a gross word to use, consuming, but it's what it is. And so, yeah, putting your information out there, it's very simple. You have people now, they take that part of you, and it's not a physical thing, but it is. Somebody comes up to you somewhere and hey, I know that you like this, and like, damn, did I say I like that? All of a sudden, I'm like, man, people know some stuff about me that I don't remember saying.
Yeah. I'll have students that sometimes will misquote some things that I tell them in lessons and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I will reiterate certain things, like, now I'm not saying this. This is what I'm saying. Don't misunderstand me. Because I have this thing where I practice and I do everything in 5-minute intervals with a timer, right? And it's not about playing as fast as you can for 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes of nonstop repetition on each example, right?
Hell yeah.
So I'll have a student that comes back and goes, "Oh man, I couldn't make it to like through 2." I said, "Were you trying to play as fast as you could for 5 minutes?" I said, "That's not. Yeah, was what you said, right?" And I was like, "No, dude. Let me restate. It's the nonstop. It's like, it's like being on a treadmill cycle. You go from walking to fast walking to jogging to sprinting to jogging back to fast walking, and you cycle yourself through it. And at your own, paying attention to your body. If you fatigue yourself so much in the first minute, then you're not going to make it in 5 minutes."
The 5-minute thing is interesting. I'd like to know more about that. I have one thing that I want to just get out of the way first,
Sure.
because I feel like, because I was watching some videos of yours this week just to kind of brush up on some stuff, and I feel like a kinship with you, with something that you played, because it's something I'm really passionate about, and whenever I see anybody else do it, I'm like, oh shit, That's the same thing. I love doing that.
Yeah,
It's these 5-note diminished arpeggios that link up together. Bro,
Yeah, fives.
the dude, I love those things, man. It's like
man.
it's a cool building block. It's just like a cool shape. And whenever I see somebody else doing it, I'm like, oh shit, I have. That's all when I warm up. That's what I practice with. It's
interesting because when I first, that's a lick that I came up with when I was still in this band called Revolution, which I quit that band in like 1992 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
I was doing it, but more with like dominant seventh and minor seventh and things like that.
Dude.
I didn't blend it into diminished seventh stuff too much later.
Yeah.
That was like kind of it wasn't a lick that I got from Gambale, but I was a huge Gambale fan.
Oh my God.
Growing up. So it was something as a result of listening to Frank Gambale, not like a copied lick. And it just made sense, right? It's five, just like every group connects with the picking. I'm a big proponent of doing all my arpeggio stuff where you don't have to do any hammer-ons or pull-offs.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I really seek that stuff out when I'm coming up with arpeggio ideas and stuff like that. So
yeah.
But yeah, I love fives, dude. But I also, when you first mentioned fives, I was thinking you were talking about like in scale your sequences, because I do fives and scale runs as well.
Okay.
The thing was, when I first trying to do a five, it was like if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
mm-hmm.
well, you end, the next five has to start on that finger.
Right.
So I don't like that. I don't want to hear a repeat note. So I do it where you flip, right? So if the first five is like, let's see, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The second one would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So every five is coming at you from a different direction, and the listener's getting hit with a barrage of notes. They don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And that's the way I like to keep it. I don't want to listen to other. I mean, it's not that I don't want to, but when I listen to other guitar players, I can just go, okay, dig it. I'm like, all right, whatever. You know what I mean? I don't want people, when they hear me, I don't want them to know what the hell I'm doing.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
I'll mix fives with sevens and other groupings. A seven would be. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, so like that would be sevens. And then you can do 7, 5, 5 or 5, 5, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, so on.
Right, okay. Like I have a question, and in these series of videos, we like to get real nerdy when it comes to picking technique.
Sure, man.
How are you changing strings? Are you starting upstrokes? Are you evening out so it's 7 and 7, and then you change a string? Do you do 7, 7, 7, and then change a string sometimes? Do you do upstrokes?
I don't really think about it like that.
Oh.
I just straight alternate pick.
Okay.
In whatever pick direction I happen to be on, that's what I change on.
Okay, so yeah, so you just.
But having said that, I suck if I got to play a scale in a single position and I have to end up changing on a down pick.
Okay, can you
sure.
Yeah, what do you mean?
If you just take a regular 3-note string scale and right, something like A major, right, down, up, down, up, down, up, down,
sure.
up, down. Every time I hit that string that I got to go down on again, it messes with my head. I practiced, I come from the Paul Gilbert school of practicing, picking.
Hey, dude,
right?
me too.
So I grew up in Intense Rock 1, and I did everything Paul said. I didn't even question it. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Dude, Gilbert was one of my biggest guitar heroes.
Hell yeah.
And so I practiced all that stuff. You're changing everything on an up pick. So I developed all my runs around changing strings on an up pick without realizing it.
Right.
Right. So I can do a 3-octave run so much more comfortably than I can do a single position scale across one spot.
Okay.
But the way I get around that is I'll kind of mentally trick myself, and this is what I do. So if I think about every 2 strings is starting over, then it's not changing to the 4th string on a down pick. So if I go down, up, 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 down, up.
Yeah.
Then I can do it better. Not great.
Yeah.
Not the way I'd like to do it, but I can do it better than if I just try to go down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. right? I have to
Yeah.
treat it as 3 groups of 6.
Right. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
You're probably familiar with Troy Grady.
Oh yeah, yeah, dude. I was one of the first guys he filmed.
Oh yes, that's right. That is.
I had all this big when he had the big contraption all mounted to my guitar and shit.
I remember. He talks about chunking together. No, and so that's exactly what you're doing. You're just chunking together 6 notes, and you're going, "Hey, here's the chunk," and then I'll pack. But I mean, like, as guitar players that play shred music, there's no way around. Like, I mean, it's interesting that you say you basically deceive yourself while you're playing, which is pretty funny. You're like, I'll think about it a different way, but there's no way to do it. I mean, you probably listen to your music. So I have this because I play in a band that plays very fast, and when I hear it in video, a live video, I'll go, damn, are we playing like 30 BPM faster? I'm like, what the fuck is going on there? And it's it's almost like you break it down real time while you're playing it to the point where it seems slow, and you don't think about, like, you could never think about the individual notes, so you just need to chunk it out, which is
sorry, go ahead.
It's just an interesting thing that maybe non-guitar players don't understand about crazy shred fast music, is that I'm not thinking about, okay, down, okay, up, okay, down. There's no way to do it like that. You have to chunk.
It's just like trying to count 16th note triplets or 32nd notes. You can't count that in real time and syllabalize that, dude.
You got to feel it.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, you got to feel it.
And the whole chunking thing, that's like a newer thing. So that was never part of my thought process.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So and I never really, I was never super analytical of my technique. I wasn't the guy that, how you were talking about earlier, like stopping it and checking out what is he doing here and all that stuff.
Right.
I wasn't that guy. I just watched it and I just had to do it. You know what I mean? It wasn't. I didn't. It's like when somebody told me to get a metronome when I was a kid, and I said, okay, got one. I played everything, did the quarter note, went chunk, done. I didn't know you could do note subdivision.
Right. Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like, I thought metronome was to help you with timing, not speed development.
Yeah.
So going back to that 5-minute thing, that's how I developed my speed.
Yeah. What is going on? What's the deal with the 5-minute thing?
Sure, man. I practice everything in 5-minute increments with the timer, like a kitchen timer or cooking timer or whatever. Back in the day, I used to take my mom's out of the kitchen and wind up one. Now everybody's got one on their cell phone or computer or whatever. But yeah, I practice everything in 5-minute intervals. So if I have my practice schedule out, I've got alternate picking, hammer-ons, pull-offs, tapping, string skipping, sweep picking, whatever, right? I practice each section, whatever it is, I only do one technique at a time, right? So if I'm going to work on alternate picking, I'm going to do all my alternate picking stuff at once before I go to another subject, right? So everything that's on my practice list or schedule is practice 5 minutes apiece every day, nonstop, 5 minutes of repetition on each idea. Now, again, it's like I was talking about a minute ago, it's kind of like being on a treadmill cycle. For those of you that have never been on a treadmill, if it has a program, right, it'll start you off walking, then you go to fast walking, and then jogging, sprinting, jogging, fast walking, and it cycles you through it, right? So you don't have to really think about it too much. You just got to try to keep up. Right. Now, when you're doing this yourself with the timer, you have to gauge yourself and make sure that you don't push so hard right out of the gate that you just blow your arm out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You need to. It's the concept of 5 minutes of nonstop repetition on each example you're playing. Now, how do you use this method to get faster? Well, at some point in every 5-minute interval, you're going to establish what your fastest clean speed is. And then when you establish your fastest clean speed, then you're going to push it till it breaks up. And as soon as it breaks up, then you reel it back into your fastest clean speed. And then you push it. You'll do this constant pushing and pulling, right? Now you're going to do that. Again, you have to listen to your body. You can't just try to do that for 5 minutes. That's not what it's about. It's about 5 minutes of nonstop repetition. But at some point, you do need to establish your fastest clean speed and start pushing it until it breaks up. Push, pull, push, pull, push, pull.
Right.
Within a few days or a week or so, your new speed's your old breakup speed.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to students before, and they're like, well, I practiced this for an hour. I'm like, you practiced one exercise for an hour? Are you nuts? You could have divided that hour into 5-minute sections and practiced all these other licks.
Right.
Because each one of those alternate picking licks or each one of those sweep picking licks is going to help the next one. They all help each other. And by doing, 20 instead of 1, you're getting a much greater territory and your hands are doing much more things. The objective is to take your hands to a point where they're never confused by anything that you present them.
Dude, I love it. I love
You know what I mean?
I love it.
So by doing the whole 5-minute interval thing, you build up your stamina too. When I was much younger, people used to always ask me, dude, how can you play so fast for so long without tiring out? Well, when I practiced that many hours a day and everything is 5 minutes a piece, you're just basically practicing to be a marathon runner.
Right.
I never got tired.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
just play until like whatever. I never had to warm up either. I practiced so much and played so much. There was never a warm up period. I just picked up my guitar and played whatever I wanted to play.
Wow. Yeah. Are you would you attribute, because like obviously you play very fast. That was a stupid thing to say, but I obviously play very fast. I think that goes without saying at this point.
Yeah.
Do you attribute that to strictly practice? Do you attribute that to genetics? Do you attribute like if you had to pinpoint, and maybe you can't, maybe it's just a multitude of things. Yeah, where does it come from?
I can't be 100% certain, but I can tell you this. I was always a fast runner.
Hmm.
I drive fast. I raced motocross. I rode dirt bikes fast, bicycles, and was fast in school as a runner. And I don't know if any of that translates to guitar playing at all.
Right.
I think sometimes it's just part of my DNA. I'm very fast moving.
Yeah.
When my kids were younger and we'd go to the store or whatever, I'd have to have a pep talk with them before we got out of the car. It's like, all right, we're going to the store. Don't ask for nothing and walk at my speed. Keep up. You know what I mean? We're not doing this. This is how it's going to go.
Yeah.
So it's always been, when I start moving, I start moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Well,
I don't know
does
if
that
that means anything.
does that mean also, because I think I read on online somewhere that you started playing guitar and then like 3 or 4 years later you were teaching pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Do you also think really fast too? Do you pick up stuff? Do you pick up concepts real quickly?
I don't know, man. I think so. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it just depends on what the concept is and how it's presented. If you want to relate it to like music theory,
Mhm.
something like that, as a guitar instructor, I use, or as a guitar player, I have multiple theory books. Even though, in the end of the day, when you read these books, they all tell you the same thing, right?
Hmm.
But sometimes somebody might say one sentence or one word in a paragraph that makes the whole thing make much more sense than any other way that anybody else ever presented it to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is to that question, but I mean,
Yeah.
I do like to have multiple ways to think about things, and as a teacher, I think it's important to be able to teach the same subject 3 or 4 different ways because not everybody learns the same way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I was in school, I had a hard time. They wanted to label me as like learning disabled and all this shit. It's like, well, that's not the case. I just didn't learn the one way that they wanted everybody else to fall in line with.
Yeah.
Start putting on Ritalin and everything else. Whatever.
Right.
You got to be open to the fact that some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners, some people learn by doing it. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't fall into the normal category, so I struggled. As a guitar teacher, I made it a point to not be like that to my students.
Right. Yeah. I find that oftentimes too, like it's really, the thing you said is really important, where sometimes one sentence makes it click,
Yeah.
And oftentimes I found, because I mean, I was teaching, I've been teaching since 2009. So I found that if you can get, and it's kind of rare, if you can get the student to explain the concept to themselves out loud, oftentimes that's the best way to do it. And sometimes they'll be like, okay, well, what about this? And because this is just and you see the moment, you're like, oh man, that's so good.
Yes. So it's funny you do that because I do something very similar. When I ask a student if they get it, and they're, oh yeah, I get it, I understand, and I can see that look in their eyes, like, they don't really get it. Right? then I'll flip it on them. I'll go, okay, I'm the student. Teach me how to do that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And so I make them teach me, as if I don't know anything,
Right.
So tell me how this works, show me how to hold a pick, and even simplest things, like even with beginners to our advanced players, because advanced players are always like, oh yeah, I know it. I got it.
Right. I think you'll probably see that reaction on my face a lot during this conversation too, because some of the stuff you played earlier was like, yeah, totally, yeah, sevens. Yeah. What the fuck are you doing? I honestly also one of the first things I tell students to do, and I haven't taught for a little while. I kind of took a bit of a break. I got a bit burnt out, but and that's just me. I'm sure it sounds like you've got. It sounds like you found your groove in there, and you're really you're doing something that really gels with you, which is awesome. I was working at a music store where I was teaching lots of little kids that didn't really care to be there.
I've done that before.
I'm sure you have, yeah. But yeah, it sort of drains your passion for it sometimes.
Yeah. I just had this conversation with one of my students the other day. It's like, you know, when I was really young, I used to dream of the day when I had all advanced students, right?
Right.
And then when I got all advanced students, it was like about after 6 months of that, I was like, man, if I have to teach the modes one more time, teach one more sweep arpeggio, I'm going to vomit. And so too much of anything is too much.
Yeah.
You know, when you first get started teaching, you end up with a lot of beginners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a whole roster of beginners 5 days a week. It's just like, it's excruciating.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's too much of saturation of any one thing. You know, so for me as a teacher, it's much more stimulating, and I enjoy it so much more if every 30 minutes or every hour I have a different style of student, different level, different direction. So because it constantly keeps me thinking in different ways. You know what I mean? It's like I'm teaching somebody that, you know, some old dude that wants to strum chords around a campfire on an acoustic. Then I got somebody that wants to learn some jazz chords, and somebody wants to learn some rock stuff or some shred stuff or some power chords or our bar chords, whatever. You know, as long as it's a mix, you know, it's much easier. It's much more stimulating and rewarding than to just do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if let's say, so I'll put you in your teaching room. I guess this is where you teach a lot of the time. So you're there and you have a student come on Skype or come into the room or whatever. And they want to take lessons from you, and they have similar interests maybe. What's the one thing that they'll play, or maybe the couple things that they'll play that you'll go, oh shit, you're pretty good at it. And it doesn't have to be speed. Like, what is like, because for me, vibrato and feel is the thing.
Yeah.
When somebody comes in and they'll play a note and they get some sweet vibrato, they could be sloppy with everything else. I don't give a fuck. It's like, damn, you got something. Like you've trained your ears to sync up with your hands, specifically your fretting hand, and really get the rhythmic, nice wide vibrato. I was like, oh damn, like where'd you learn how to do that?
Sure. And I have some things I want to talk about with vibrato in a second, but to answer your question, it just depends. It's not any one thing, you know. I mean, sometimes because I get students of all ages and levels and stuff like that. So it's like I got to see you play a little bit. You know?
Yeah, of course.
You can even make an assessment on where to go and what to do. You know what I mean? You need to play a little bit. So just seeing how well somebody can play, some power chords and rhythm guitar stuff and how intricate they can do what they're picking, will tell a lot about their level.
Right.
And ripping scales or pentatonics or whatever, but seeing with somebody right out of the gate with good vibrato is not super common.
No.
I mean, it's not. And as a teacher, it's the hardest thing to teach.
Absolutely.
Because you can't, everybody wants to bend in vibrato by bending the joints in their fingers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's like, well, if you have your palm against the bottom of the neck, you have no choice but to bend with the joints of your fingers. And that's the last thing you want to do. I mean, for me personally, bending in vibrato is all hand.
Yeah, wrist.
It's not about, I don't bend with the joints in my fingers. I bend with my wrist,
Yeah.
And then trying to teach somebody about bending with your wrist, that's such a hard thing. It's like, I'll say, it's like turning a door handle.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You got to lock your hand in, put it in the pocket, start with your hand so that the palm of your hand is facing down, shooting down to the ground. So you got about a gap like this much between your hand and the palm of your hand and the fretboard, so that when you go like this, you got somewhere to push the string.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you start like this, well, you got nowhere to go, and the only thing you can do is bend the joints in your fingers.
Yeah.
The art of the fulcrum too, because when you bend toward the floor, you're prying against the joint of your finger. Which is different than pushing.
It's concentric and eccentric movement, I guess. So eccentric would be pull. Eccentric would be. Concentric would be. So you're doing, and concentric generally, I mean, it's just using like it's a push day, and then pull day. It's like they are really different operations, and so getting a really nice smooth eccentric, and it combined, like it's two different operations, and also people, like a couple different things. People don't understand that it should be rhythmic because it also is just a fast bend. It's a series of fast bends. They should be going up to the same pitch and back down to exactly the same pitch, and it should be nice in key with the music. Although oftentimes vibrato, you can kind of get away with it because it really is like a trill to another pitch, but you can kind of get away with it for the most part. But the concentric eccentric movement, get them both really nice and slow up to the same spot, and then rhythmic. It's like so many things.
It's the biggest thing that my pet peeve is, dude, I don't like narrow and fast vibrato.
Oh hell yeah, dude. Yeah.
It's got to be wide. It's got to be smooth.
Yeah.
You're vibratoing to the quarter note or longer.
Right.
It's not about fast. I don't want to hear.
Although
Oh,
that did sound pretty sick when you just did that. Honestly,
yeah.
that sounded cool.
What I mean? Maybe I should do it more like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little slightly out of key and then real fast.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, there was something that I was working on a few years ago, and I incorporated it into my guitar playing quite a bit, and it's this.
Oh yeah.
Sort of like a classical push-pull vibrato.
Absolutely, man.
And that's a real different sound because I don't play with a trem. So there's no real way to. There's only two ways to down pitch. You can do this, which I'm scared to do, and also I need two hands to do it, or you can push the string towards the pickups, and it gives you a real different sound.
Right. So and classical vibratos, exactly.
Yeah.
What that nylon string guitar players can't bend.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So they gotta push and pull. So it's like you get a rocket. And I generally use that more for slower, more subtle things, right?
Right.
As opposed to the big rock vibrato. But then also you can combine rock vibrato, your regular just, that kind of stuff. You can combine that with classical vibrato, and then you get what Steve Vai calls circular vibrato.
Right. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
So you get that big, I'm not very good at it, but it's kind of weird, but
yeah, I always
I do have a whammy bar because I like to get that Holdsworth kind of vibrato stuff, that he does with his phrasing into notes and things like that. Now Holdsworth doesn't really do that stuff. That's more like a Vai thing, but
it's a Vai thing. Yeah.
I like the all that kind of stuff.
Right.
A lot. I'm a big fan of that kind of vibrato, scooping into notes and that sort of stuff.
And you're playing a 7-string or an 8-string?
Yeah, 7.
7-string. Okay, but you played 8-string for quite a while. Do you still?
Yeah, I still do. My main 8-string was not the low F sharp; it was the high A.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. The fan fret, high A to low B. I like that because my whole purpose for doing that was to get up into violin range. I was always a violin fan, Paganini and Chopin and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So, there was a time when when I was working on my instrumental album, I spent about 6 months where I did nothing but just listen to the 24 Caprices.
Hell yeah.
That was all I listened to, just kind of, just absorb it and have that kind of thing in my psyche.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's when, I saw that Conklin made 8-string guitars.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
My first was the Conklin. That's what I used on the Outworld album. I used the high A 8-string on 3 songs on Outworld's first CD.
Right.
Which is very cool, man. I love that stuff. And then when I was with Dean Guitars, they made me a fan fret high A 8-string, as well as the low F sharp one as well.
Oh yeah.
I could never, with the low F sharp one, we struggled at first with getting the bridge pickup placement right.
Mm-hmm.
When the first few they built for me, obviously the bridge on an 8-string with the low F sharp is way further back.
Mm.
So they were moving the bridge pickup all the way back to mesh with the bridge.
Right.
And then it was way too bright and trebly. You have to keep the pickup in the same spot regardless of where the bridge goes.
Right.
For some things that we learned about it, right? So just because the bridge is back here now, you don't necessarily want to move your bridge pickup all the way back there.
So you were talking about so when they did the was it also fan fret also, by the way?
No.
Okay.
We did a straight fret low F sharp.
And what was the scale length?
I think it was 26.5.
26.
I didn't want to go with 27. I had played some of the other stuff with the longer scale, and it's like I'm already stretching as far as I can stretch. And I didn't want the guitar to feel that much different.
Right.
Now, and you do have some drawbacks by not going with a longer scale. It's hard to get the tension right and things like that. But I made it work. But I could just never get the tone of the guitar right with the pickups for the low F sharp. And I'm still working on it. With the new guitar company that I'm working with and stuff like that, we're going to do a low F sharp model as well. But just trying to get the tone right is really super hard. It's almost like I'm to the point that I think that to build a pickup that will function right and get the tonal frequencies right, you almost have to make a pickup for a guitar that's kind of like the old P-bass pickups that are split.
Right.
Have the top 4 or 5 strings with one pickup over here and the other one slightly moved over. You know what I mean? I'm not really sure yet. I mean, I've been racking my brain on it and trying to get the tone right because it just doesn't. You can't take a 6-string pickup and wind it for 7-string and have it sound the same, or 8-string either. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't take the same formula because it's a different amount of wraps of coils and wire. and all that stuff that goes into building a pickup, the magnet, and it just does not translate. So you have to rethink how to create something that's similar to what you liked on a 6 string and how to get that into a 7 or 8 string pickup, because you're not talking about a pickup that's this long.
Right.
Same amount of windings on a 6 string coil or bobbin or whatever is not going to be the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it doesn't function. Right. I don't know if you've ever noticed that.
It's honestly like I don't know. I get people asking me to do tone videos. And I fucking just don't know enough I just don't have good ears for it. I just don't know what I'm talking about.
And in many respects that's fair, because I don't know a super lot about it.
Yeah, sure.
Just know what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like this. You can compare a 6 string EMG to a 7 string EMG of the same model, and it's not going to sound exactly the same.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
You really love this particular 6 string pickup or 7 string pickup, and you want to make it for an 8 or vice versa. It doesn't. You can't just buy the 8 string model of it and expect it to sound like a 6.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you had a high A with a fan fret, which is really. It's pretty unique. I don't really see a lot of other people doing that. Well, yeah. So you do that because you want to emulate.
Get it up into the violin range.
Right. And so when you were in college, when you were studying music, when you first kind of started doing that, were you like really into classical music? And when you said you listened to it just to get it in your brain, I think that's really important to say, because when I listen to a ton of classical music, I'll be playing something and I'll go, oh, hey, here's this note. And something in my brain has just been activated because I've been listening to a lot of jazz Bach or whatever. Yeah. And I just know kind of, that's where that note could go, rather than having to, about all the different cadences and Neapolitan chords, like having to know all that stuff in the front of your brain. You can just have some of it running in the back of your brain and just know kind of where the sounds should go. So how has classical music kind of been a part of your life?
Well, it's very interesting, because for me, when I first started listening to Paganini, I was still in high school. And when I would listen to the Paganini stuff and other violin stuff as well, it made sense to me. I heard it and I could see it on guitar.
Right.
It's so similar to guitar in so many ways, except for obviously the tuning. But
they're
it just made sense. I could hear it.
They're in fifths, right?
Yeah. Violin's fifths.
Yeah.
But I could just hear it. It just made sense to me. It sounded like guitar stuff. There's things that should be played on guitar. When I listen to piano, I don't hear that connection.
Right.
Yeah. Piano, I don't hear it like that. I listen to piano and I love what I'm hearing. And certainly when you're hearing more single note lines on a piano, it's easier to associate with guitars, like arpeggios and scale runs and whatnot. But it just made sense, So it was easier to kind of emulate.
Right.
I was never the guy that sat there and learned stuff note for note.
Okay, interesting.
That wasn't me, and I'll tell you why. When I first started trying to do that stuff, I might, I'd spend 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, whatever it might be, trying to figure out one riff by somebody, and by the time I was, 5, 10, 20 minutes into it, I would have created 5 of my own riffs.
Right.
So at that point, I just said, well, I didn't start playing guitar to copy other people anyway.
Sure.
So from that point on, I just would listen to music, be inspired by it, and just try to write something kind of like that. And usually whatever I came up with didn't sound anything like it.
Yeah.
But and that was what's cool, because it's not like, when you can tell when somebody is super inspired by their guitar players, because they end up just sounding just like them.
Of course.
So none of my stuff ever sounded just like what it was. I might be listening to Vine and somebody say, check out this riff I wrote listening to some Vine, and go, oh, that sounds like Malmsteen. What are you talking about?
Right.
So it would come out totally different,
because
maybe I was using the wrong scale or the wrong phrasing or whatever it might have been, or maybe wrong chords or whatever.
Well, that's funny that you bring that up, because I are you into video games at all?
No, man, I missed that whole generation.
You missed the whole thing. Okay, cool. So there's a great series of games by a company called From Software, and they made a game called Bloodborne. And the music for this game is just so evil sounding. Like, it's just like so gnarly. It's like basically my favorite part about the game. And so there's one piece in there that you're fighting this boss, and it's just like so fucking epic. Halfway through, the chords change, and it gets just like this dark, like, I don't even know, Hungarian minor melody, maybe something just so cool. And so I got really excited about it. I was like, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to take literally the same chords, and I'm going to write a very similar lead line over top of it. It just so happened that mine was maybe 20, 30 BPM faster, and it was in 4/4 rather than 3/4. So it was a little bit different to start. But I spent, I don't know, 8 hours just working on this thing, kind of coming up with different melodies underneath, layering it. I spent a long time on it. I go back and listen to it, and I'm like, that sounds nothing like the thing that I fucking based it on. Like,
right. That's the cool thing about it. You know what I mean?
nothing. Yeah.
Right? Take that inspiration and that vibe that you're getting from the music you're listening to,
Yeah.
and then you can just run with it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, for the longest time, you know, and this wasn't a good thing. I fell victim of this because it was almost like I used it as a crutch. It was like, well, there's nothing cool new coming out. I don't have any inspiration. My inspiration was always new music. I always had to have new music to keep me inspired, and flowing off of, and went through that for a while. But sometimes people ask me, what do you do to get out of a rut? You know what I mean? And that's one of the things I would recommend. It's like, go buy some new music, go listen to something new.
Yeah.
Sometimes what it takes is hearing one new riff by one guitar player to spark a whole new thing,
Yeah.
Or the other thing is to go, get a new instructional book or whatever. All it takes sometimes is learning one new chord or one new lick or one new scale to spark a whole new thing, because if you're anything like me, if I learn one new scale, then I instantly got to map it all out. I got to figure out all over the neck. I got to figure out all the chords, all the arpeggios. I know everything about it. I got to run every string, singular, double, linear, 3-octave, every position. I got this whole thing that I run through for every new scale or whatever I learn. We got to go in and completely dissect it so I know everything about it.
Damn.
You know what I mean? So I'll do, reverse linear, where you're running your scales this way.
Sure.
If you're running, if you start up on the high string and you run your scales this way, you end up on the 6th or 7th string. So your hand is ascending. So when people are watching you, it's a trip because your hand is going higher and the sound's going lower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I've never thought about doing that ever before.
Yeah, so you get like some stuff like that. So it's like, I call it reverse linear.
Right.
So you go. Then you go run it back that way. You know what I mean? So you do this lick, it goes this way and then that way. So you end up with ascending, going higher in pitch, but you start with this, what looks like, people are confused when they're watching you play because it's like the sound's going down, but his hand's going up.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of that stuff with, everything. So I'm a big proponent of or believer in, never letting one good lick just be one good lick.
Right.
So anytime I come up with an idea, then I just run with it and try to do it in every variation of it and every position of the key. If it starts in one particular mode, then I work it out on every mode.
Right.
Every position of the fretboard, run it in different scale families and groups, and I just
scale families.
Yeah, so if you're in melodic minor, that's all
parent
minor.
Sure,
all the modes melodic minor.
Right.
If you're in Hungarian minor, you're doing all Hungarian minor. So
Okay.
if I come up with something in natural minor, then I go run it in everything.
Yeah. Have you like what I've had recently is a resurgence in enjoying natural minor, because I was really okay. Let's do harmonic minor, and then I just milked that until I just hated the sound of it. I'm like, oh my god, I can't. And then I got a little bit into melodic minor and get in more ambiguous sort of stuff, half whole diminished, augmented, whole tone kind of stuff. I go, yeah, that's cool, but it sticks out quite a bit. It's kind of hard to put it into I found it hard to put into a death metal scenario without having stick out like crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And then I got a bit of a resurgence into natural minor, which I'm like, oh, this is really dark and sad.
Yeah.
You know? It's a little bit less obvious too. Like the obvious step of that minor third step between the 6 and the 7 harmonic minor, you're like, here's the thing. It's like, oh man, dude, it gets so you just kind of get so tired of it. Also, on the subject of getting something new, and my wife also plays guitar. She plays peaceful guitars. Her setup over there is also full of guitars, just like mine is over here. And the thing that she does that drives me crazy, but I also sometimes do it, is you feel shitty about your guitar playing for a couple weeks, and you go, "Damn, man, I fucking suck lately." And you're like, "Wait, I'm playing old strings."
Oh yeah.
Wait a second, what am I doing? Yeah. And it's the simplest fix, and you're like, oh, I feel much better. You feel like 20% of a better guitar player just changing your string. It is like so obvious that I feel like so many people get stuck in that trap where they're like, I suck. I feel like it's like, how old are your strings? Like 3 months old. It's like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like,
What color are your top three strings? You know, are
yeah.
they black? Yes, time to change it. When you play one note on your first string, does it oscillate and go, ooh,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
When one string oscillates and sounds like two, it's time to change
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
you know. But
I got one more question for you here before we wrap it up. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. By the way, it's been a pleasure. One thing I noticed about your guitar playing that is, it's like very confusing. When I'm playing fast runs up here, whatever it is, you'll notice that I have my hand, and because I play an 8 string, you also play extended range guitar.
sure,
My hand
right.
is muting this quite a bit, but I found that you were doing a lot of, you're almost like leaving it open, but you're not getting a lot of noise. How are you doing that?
I don't know.
Right. Okay. Perfect. All right. End of the video. Thanks so much
But I
for
mean,
being.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and honestly, it's just practicing and being clean.
Right. Okay. All right. I'll
Um,
put that on the to-do
but
list then.
I think there's more to it. First of all, when I'm playing like that, I have to explain why that you see my hand like that, because so I play 7-string guitar primarily. I mean, I do the 8-string stuff too, but not as much.
Mhm.
But I tune down a half step.
Right.
Okay, so
Oh,
all my
okay.
guitars are E flat,
Yeah.
and I still use nines.
Right.
So I
Right.
don't go the heavy gauge string route. I still
Yeah.
use nines. I do use like a 58 or a 60 for the low beat. With the tremolo, it does bring in tension back into the equation.
So you're
Maybe
doing
back.
9 to 60 kind of thing?
Well, it'd be 9 to 42 like regular.
Sure.
Regular set of nines, and I'll do a 58 or a 60.
Oh, okay.
And I've gone up to like 62 before, and
Yeah.
it just depends. I've experimented with putting heavier, 5th and 6th strings on, but it's just like I can't do the full on tens. Even
okay.
the half step down, it's just too much.
Yeah, yeah.
It's already hard enough to play for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't need to make it any harder. For anyone.
I feel you.
That's the way I think about it. Because I all the years growing up, people will always go, "Oh, you play nice. Here, can you play it on my Strat with tens?" And I pick it up and go, "Yeah, see, I can do it. Big deal."
Sure.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, that's the difference. Not they can't.
Of course. Yeah.
There's so much macho attitude with tens.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's like, go ahead and you're gonna have arthritis in 10 years.
Well, I do play tens, all full disclosure, but I feel like it's impacted my. I mean, obviously the gauge of strings that you play very much so impacts your guitar playing style, and I've been playing tens since I've been playing guitar. I've never switched, and I pick up our other guitar player Toby, his guitars, and he plays nines, and I go, oh man, I just don't like it, but I also only play it for 5 minutes at a time, and I go, like, it is the least effort. Like I should just equip a guitar with nines so that I get easier vibrato, so that I get you know what I mean? Like there's so many things I would benefit from. But anyway,
I had a student the other day. He goes, "Yeah, I play 11s." He was talking about his technique, and he's like, "Man, I'm struggling with all this. I feel like my shoulder's tired, and I'm wear out quick." And I said, "Well, what gauge string? 11s?" I was like, "Oh, dude, yank them immediately. Yeah, just get them out of there, dude. Right. What do you think? 11s, really?
Yeah,
it's standard tuning.
Right?
11s.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. But
wow.
Anyway, back to the picking thing. So because I'm tuned down half step and I'm still using nines, dude, the tension of your string here is incredibly different, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Grab a high E string at the neck and pull it floor to ceiling, and then do the same thing at the saddle. You're gonna notice something incredibly different. That's tension, right? So for me to do some of my fastest picking stuff, I get back here on the tightest part of the string.
Right. Well.
Because the closer I get up here, you get in the flub zone, is what I call it.
Yep.
So as a general rule, I tell my students and other guitar players that ask, it's like, if my guitar had a middle pickup, it would be right here. So as a rule, you can pick above the middle pickup and before it, but not after it. Because once you go past where the middle pickup would be, that's when you get into this loose zone, and your picking is just going to be all flubby. With tens, maybe not, but with nines tuned down a half step, yes.
Yeah.
So to combat that looseness, you know what I mean? So I'm not muting anything, but I'm up here, so I'm not touching anything, so nothing should be ringing.
Yeah, right.
So I go. There's just no noise.
It does sound like you pick quite hard, which helps compress the signal, where it's just like, here's this one note, and there might be other noise going on, but I can't hear it.
Yeah, I don't, I think it sounds like I'm picking harder just because the tension's tighter right there.
Right, sure.
So, you do get a different tone,
Sure.
So that's kind of just, So when I'm picking, that's when I'm back here. Now I don't. Now the problem with that is when I get on the lower strings, I have to do this other thing with my hand because I can't pick back here on the low strings because I need to mute.
Yeah, of course,
I do,
yeah.
as an effect, not string noise, but just if I want to hear, except, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I encounter an issue in the way I get around that is I take my hand and I'll squeeze my hand together like this, so that I can still palm mute, but my pick is back further.
Oh, interesting.
Right, so that's how I compensate for the looser string being tuned down a half step. So. So we get like, right. So that's how I can still kind of get back to the tighter part of the string and still get the muting effect that you want.
That's interesting. Yeah, one of the reasons why I'm laughing so much is that I have a guy that transcribes these videos, and he's fucked.
Oh, shit. Well, here, let me play some more then.
He's fucked, dude. Yeah. He has no chance in hell. I'm glad I don't do it, but he'll figure it out. He'll slow down the video or something. That's interesting. Yeah, I've never thought about doing that. Yeah, you do get a big tone difference playing up high. Honestly, it's so funny. Like, I mean, doing these guitar lesson videos, I go in wanting to have a cool video, cool conversation, and then it's like, oh, right, I'm also taking essentially a lesson. And the thing that you said about moving your pick back on the high string, I'm like, yeah, that's a really good idea. I've never, because I mean, I call them variables. I have a thick, small pick. I don't leave a lot of pick showing. I don't move it around. There's not a lot of variable going on. The string introduces a variable when you're doing. You're right. The flub zone, I guess, is kind of
right,
and the string moves around. The more you pick it, it's almost like a moving target, and so you have to, But yeah, bringing it back towards the bridge is actually a really good idea for that.
Yeah, because you can, if you get up here, you can see the string moving.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Especially on the lower strings,
Yeah.
So when you get back here, the string's not moving. You're not seeing that big wave,
right?
Cycle, of the string from being hit, how it moves. You know what I mean? So. And that's not something that I set out to do.
No, of course.
It's just something that happened, as a result of me needing to get this result. It's just like the low profile tremolos. I can't play a Floyd Rose that's regular Floyd Rose that has the fine tuners up because this is where my hand goes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I didn't discover that was even a thing until I started playing 7-string guitar with a low pro. Before that, I played a guitar with a regular Floyd on it. But then I used to hold the pick between my middle finger and my
no way.
My thumb. My index finger just used to sit on top, and because the fine tuners were in my way, my elbow used to come way out like this. Right. If you ever watch any old videos of me playing that orange 6-string, you'll notice my pickings, like my elbow is way out, and that's to get around the fine tuners on the bridge, and I had to hold my pick between this finger, my middle finger, and my thumb. And after getting my first 7-string, about 6 months into it, I went back to holding the pick like this. My elbow came back in. It just corrected itself.
Right.
And that's when I went, oh, man, all these years I was struggling with that because, and it's like, growing up, it's like, well, I got to have Floyd Rose, man. Everybody has Floyd Rose.
Of course. Yeah, it's a cool thing to
have
do.
One. So, I didn't know any better, and I wasn't a hyper analyzer of every pick direction and all that stuff. I was a hyper practicer.
Sounds like
I just, it's just 5 minutes on everything. One of the big things that I learned, because I'm self-educated, so to speak, and I taught myself through the Metal Method stuff, Doug Marks, and one of the things he used to say in Metal Method was play each one of these examples until you can play them as fast and clean as me. So I just took that with everything, right? Yeah. So I never set out to be a super fast guitar player. My guitar heroes just kept getting faster. So I was just keeping up, man. It wasn't that, but speed wasn't necessarily my motivation.
Right. Yeah.
Just I loved the way these guys played, and I wanted to be able to play like it.
Yeah.
I never aspired to be faster than anybody.
Right.
Just wanted to be able to play them like my heroes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. You've been really generous with your time. I want to make sure that everybody knows where they can find more about you, where they can take lessons, where they can.
Can I give you one more thing?
Anything that you like. Yeah. Right, whatever you like.
So when we were talking about 5s and 7s, I'll give this. This is for your transcription guy.
Hell yeah, yeah. Matt, this is for you.
So we're gonna talk about 5s and 7s. Now you can do like we talked about a minute ago. 5s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, starting on the pinky, or you can do starting on the index. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can have a 7 that starts on the pinky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? That ends on the index. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Then you also have a 7 that starts on the index. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ends on the pinky.
Sure.
Right? So you can mix these 5s and 7s up so that they don't. You'll go through 4 cycles, 5, 7 to 5, 7 before anything gets repeated. Right? So one of the processes that I'm on is creating these sequences that never repeat themselves.
Okay, like pi.
Yeah, just like a long run, nothing's ever the same.
That's insane.
Right?
What?
So yeah. So this is just 4 right now. It's just 5, 7, 5, 7. And keep in mind, each one of these 5s and 7s are different than the previous one.
Okay.
So if I start with a 7, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Since I ended on my index, I'm going to start a 5 on my pinky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That 5 ends on the pinky. Now I'm going to start a 7 on the index. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That one ends on the pinky. So now I'm going to do a 5 that starts on the index. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right?
Right.
And
okay.
that is a total mind warp because you have. It's easier to do if you don't stay in one position because it's easier to keep track of.
Yeah, of course.
All of these in one spot, you really gotta.
Yeah.
You know, I've really had to focus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2. You know, which finger am I starting on? Which finger am I ending on? And like we talked about earlier, it's when you're playing that fast, it's hard to keep track.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with this, you have to really get it down because you do have to think about it. So you got to get it down to the point you no longer have to think. So. That was just a combination of different groupings of 5s and 7s.
Okay, so what are you thinking about when you're playing that? What's going through your head for each position?
At some point, I just stopped thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking when I first started, and then I just started going and just let it fall where it let the notes
right.
fall where they.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's working. It sounds cool. It sounds bonkers. It sounds fucking insane.
Thank you. So I've been working out various groupings of 6s and 3s and 4s. And
Okay,
stuff.
so you're doing even
So
no groupings as well.
You can take it and just do all kinds of. You got a 6. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 2 different 6s. Right. So now you got 2 different 6s. You can do a 4, or right. So there's so many different groupings of 4s and So I'm working on this whole maddening process. So if you took a 3-octave run, essentially, like. Right. If you took something like that, every position would be a different grouping.
Right.
But you have to. The thing is, you got to be strategic about it because I don't ever want to end on a grouping that I have to do the same finger. Right?
Yeah, sure.
If I end on the pinky, I don't want to start the next one on my pinky.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Got to be another finger.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Although the index finger doing ascending runs, oftentimes you can kind of get around that because it acts as the anchor. You could do. You can end up doing. I guess that doesn't start and end, but when I was practicing actually before we started doing this call was. I'm not very good at it, but started doing.
No per string variable?
Yeah, 5 note per string, but starting. But I'm doing economy picking. I should alternate pick it to get my timing better. But starting and ending on the same kind of finger, and you can get it with your index finger, but none of the other fingers really work very well with that.
Like with 5s, it works out great if you run across a single position. Right. So that's every string you're starting on a pinky index as you go across.
Is this the typical reaction that people give you whenever you play guitar? All right. Cool.
And you can do 3s. You can do a 5 and a 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. No, maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. So you do 1 string, it's 3. All right, so you get a 5 and a 3. Yeah.
I'm gonna watch the video back later.
Dude, I got so much stuff we could talk about.
Yeah.
4 note per string variables and 3 note per string variables, those are cool.
I love it.
Those old exercises where you would just do every variation of 4?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You got 4 from the index, 4 from the middle, 4 from the ring.
Yeah.
Well, I do those, but I do them with scales.
Okay, yeah, sequencing them, scales using position.
Let's see.
Yeah,
That's a
right.
from two.
Yeah.
Right, and I'll do all those variables, and
Where,
I've got
where
a
where's your
set of
where's your thumb when you're doing that kind of stuff too? Is it right in the
my
middle?
thumb is always here,
Yeah. Yeah.
right
Same kind
between
of plane.
my middle and ring finger, because that's the center of balance
Yeah,
in your
sure.
hand.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It's
Okay.
never with the big stretches like that. The thumb is here, never over here. Smaller stretches,
Yeah.
it might go over here a little bit, but as where is it's placed on the neck will depend on how big a stretch I'm doing. If I'm doing something, like 5 to 12, right? My thumb is like way up here.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the wider the stretch, the closer my thumb gets. And sometimes the stretch will be so big that it's like literally just, I don't know if you see that or not. It's like,
Yeah.
right up there, because I'm doing something
Sure.
like a 4-note string pentatonic scale, right?
Yeah, right.
Um,
You got to stretch real wide for those, so you need to
yeah.
have your thumb real low down.
Yeah, you gotta bust
Oh my
those out.
god. Damn.
Yeah, those are rad.
It's insane. We got to do it again. We got to catch up a little bit more.
Absolutely.
I got a million more questions. But
Cool.
where can people find out more? So you got a website. You do lessons. Like, tell everybody like what's going on.
Yep. You can find out more about lessons at rustycooley.com.
Cool.
And just as a general keeping up just with what's going on, just Instagram, or my YouTube channel.
Thanks so much for your time, buddy. I loved every second of it.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. See you later.